I would love reconciliation with my family. There's no point in continuing to fight anymore. As I said, life is precious.
Prince Harry has finally spoken out, sharing words that have surprised many and raised deep questions. His statement about regret has brought back old emotions and new debates. What really led to this moment of honesty? Could things have turned out differently if he stayed? Join us as we uncover the truth behind the confession. A prince under pressure. Life around Prince Harry had always looked bright from the outside. The cameras captured smiles, public walks, and moments that felt warm and easy. Yet behind those polished scenes, pressure was slowly building. Every step he took was watched, every word measured, and every decision weighed against years of royal tradition. The structure around him was firm, shaped by rules that had guided the monarchy for generations. It gave stability, but it also left very little space for change. Over time, that tight structure began to feel heavy, especially as his personal life grew and his responsibilities shifted in new directions. As his bond with Meghan Markle deepened, his focus began to move. Protecting his home, his peace, and his future became more important than ever. This shift was natural, but within the royal setting, it created quiet tension. There were expectations about how things should be done, how roles should be carried, and how public life should be lived. These expectations did not always match the life he wanted to build. Small differences in views slowly turned into deeper concerns. They were not loud or dramatic at first, but they stayed, growing in silence behind closed doors. The presence of the media made everything more intense. Stories moved quickly, and opinions formed just as fast. Every appearance was studied, and every gesture was given meaning. This constant attention added another layer of pressure. It was no longer just about family discussions or personal choices. It became about public perception, headlines, and the way the world reacted. For Harry, this created a feeling of being pulled in different directions. On one side was duty, shaped by history. On the other was a desire for a quieter, more controlled life. Inside the family, conversations began to change. They became more careful, more serious, and sometimes more distant. There were moments when understanding felt close, but also moments when it seemed far away. The balance between personal happiness and royal responsibility was becoming harder to keep. Each decision carried weight, not just for him, but for the image of the monarchy as a whole. This made every step forward feel uncertain, as though one wrong move could shift everything. Despite all this, there was still a sense of hope. Harry believed that there could be a way to create a life that honored both his past and his future. He wanted to find a path where he could remain connected to his roots while also building something new. But finding that balance was not simple. The deeper the discussions went, the clearer it became that change would not come easily. The system around him had been built over many years, and it was not designed to bend quickly. As the pressure continued to grow, the gap between what was expected and what was needed became more visible. What once felt manageable was now becoming overwhelming. The quiet tension was turning into something stronger, something that could no longer be ignored. Each passing day brought new questions and new challenges, making it clear that a major decision was approaching. Could a single choice bring peace, or would it create something even more difficult? The decision that shocked the world. The moment the announcement came, everything changed around Prince Harry. He was no longer simply a royal figure moving through duties that had been part of his life for many years. With one clear decision, he stepped into a new path that would not only shape his future, but also leave a lasting mark on the monarchy itself. This was not a small shift or a quiet adjustment. It was a strong and visible break from a role that had guided his identity for most of his life. As the news spread, it moved quickly across the world, reaching people from different places and backgrounds, each reacting in their own way. What came to be known as Megxit held a meaning that went far beyond a simple announcement. It carried weight, emotion, and many unanswered questions. People everywhere began to wonder what had led to such a bold step and what it would mean for the future of the royal family. Within the palace, the atmosphere grew serious. Conversations that once felt steady became more tense, as focus turned to duty, loyalty, and the responsibilities that came with their roles. The balance between personal choice and public expectation became the center of attention, shaping every discussion that followed. For Harry, this decision was not made quickly. It came from a place of deep thought and careful reflection. Over time, the need for change had grown stronger, shaped by his desire to live a life that offered more control and more privacy. He wanted a space where he could protect his family and create a future that felt safe and steady. Yet, making that choice meant stepping away from something that had always been part of him. It was not only about leaving behind a role, it was about reshaping his identity and learning how to stand outside of a system that had once defined him. The public response showed just how powerful this moment was. Some people understood his reasons and supported his decision, seeing it as a step toward personal peace and independence. Others felt unsure or even disappointed. They had known him as a royal who brought warmth and connection to the public, someone who felt close and easy to understand. Now, that image seemed to shift, creating a sense of distance that had not been there before. The difference in opinion grew stronger, making the situation feel more divided and complex. Inside the royal family, the impact reached deep. This was not simply about one person choosing a new path. It touched the structure, the image, and the future direction of the monarchy. Every discussion carried importance, as family members tried to find a way forward that could respect both long-standing tradition and personal choice. The path ahead was not clear. Each option came with its own set of challenges, and every step required careful thought and understanding. The need to protect the institution while also facing change created a delicate balance that was not easy to maintain. As time passed, it became clear that things would not return to how they once were. The decision had opened the door to a new chapter, one filled with change, adjustment, and many unknowns. Harry now stood in a different place, one that offered freedom from old pressures but also brought its own form of uncertainty. The life ahead held promise, yet it also carried questions that could only be answered with time. Each step forward would shape his future in ways that were still unfolding. The world continued to watch with close attention. Every movement, every update, and every moment was followed with interest. People waited to see how this new path would develop and what it would bring. There was a sense of curiosity mixed with concern, as many wondered if this change would lead to the peace he had been seeking or if it would reveal new challenges that had not yet been seen. The story was far from over, and each new moment added to its depth. As the situation continued to unfold, deeper questions began to rise. Could this distance create a clearer understanding of what truly mattered, or would it widen the space between him and his past? The American shift. The journey into a new life began with a quiet sense of hope for Prince Harry. Leaving behind the familiar walls of royal duty, he stepped into a space that promised something softer and more personal. The United States offered distance from constant attention and a chance to live without strict patterns guiding every move. With Meghan Markle by his side, this new beginning felt like a chance to build a home shaped by choice rather than expectation. Each day carried a calm feeling, as if life had slowed just enough for him to truly see it. At first, the sense of freedom felt full and bright. There were no long lines of formal duties waiting, no constant need to follow tradition at every step. He could wake up and decide how his day would unfold. Simple moments began to feel special, from quiet mornings filled with peace to evenings spent without the weight of public eyes. This gentle rhythm gave him space to breathe and to think clearly. For the first time in a long while, life felt like it belonged fully to him. As he settled into this new world, work began to take on a different meaning. Projects in media and storytelling opened doors that had once been closed. These opportunities allowed him to share ideas and speak about things that mattered deeply to him. Step by step, he began to shape an identity outside the royal system. He was no longer only seen as a prince defined by tradition, but as someone creating a path that felt more modern and personal. This new role brought a sense of purpose that was both exciting and grounding. Still, even with this growing independence, a quiet feeling of distance began to appear. The space between him and his past life was not only measured in miles, but also in moments that could no longer be shared. Memories of home remained strong, and they came softly, often when he least expected them. The bond he once shared with Prince William stood at the center of these thoughts. They had walked through life together for many years, facing both joy and challenge side by side. Now, that closeness felt far away, shaped by silence and time. Daily life in this new setting brought both comfort and quiet struggle. There were days filled with laughter, peace, and a sense of control that had once been missing. Yet there were also moments when the silence felt deeper than expected. The absence of familiar voices, shared routines, and family gatherings created a space that was hard to fill. Even with success in his new work and a loving home around him, there remained a gentle longing that stayed just beneath the surface. As time passed, reflection became a steady part of his days. Freedom, which once felt like the full answer, began to show a more complete picture. It was not only about stepping away from pressure, but also about understanding what had been left behind. Each step forward carried a quiet reminder of the life he once knew. The distance gave him clarity, but it also revealed the emotional costs that came with it. This balance between peace and longing became clearer with each passing moment. There was also strength in this journey, even with its challenges. He continued to move forward, building a life that matched his values and the future he wanted to protect. The path he chose was not simple, but it was real. It allowed him to grow into a version of himself that felt more honest and more in control. The mix of freedom and isolation created a story that was both soft and strong, filled with lessons that would stay with him for years to come. In quiet moments, thoughts of connection began to rise again. The idea of closeness with family, once taken for granted, now felt more important than ever. The space between past and present raised questions that did not have easy answers. Could time soften what distance had created, or would it continue to grow wider? The interview that changed everything. The interview with Oprah Winfrey became a defining point in the life of Prince Harry. It was calm on the surface, yet filled with deep emotion underneath. The setting felt simple, but the meaning behind it carried great weight. For the first time in a long while, he sat in a space where he could speak freely about his life, his struggles, and his experiences. The world watched closely, knowing that something important was about to unfold. Every moment of the conversation held attention, as though each word carried a piece of a much larger story. As the discussion began, it slowly opened a window into a life that had often been hidden behind formal appearances. Harry spoke about the pressure that came with living inside the royal system, where every move was observed and every action had meaning. The constant attention from the public and the media had created a weight that was not always easy to carry. Over time, this pressure had shaped his thoughts and emotions, leaving marks that could not be seen from the outside. Sharing these details brought a new level of understanding to those who had only seen the surface of his life. The conversation also touched on personal struggles, including moments of emotional difficulty that had grown over time. Speaking about mental well-being in such an open way added depth to the interview. It showed a side of Harry that was honest and human, moving beyond the image of royalty into something more real. The openness of these moments created a connection with many people, as it reflected feelings that are often kept hidden. It was not just about telling a story, but about showing the truth behind it. As the interview continued, attention turned toward the tension within the royal family. These were deeply personal matters, shaped by years of shared life and strong bonds. Bringing them into the open changed how everything was seen. What had once been private was now part of a global conversation. The shift was powerful, as it allowed the world to see the complexity of relationships that had always seemed steady. It became clear that there were layers of emotion and misunderstanding that had built over time. The response from the public was immediate and strong. News of the interview spread quickly, and discussions filled every space where people gathered to share opinions. Some people felt a deep sense of empathy, understanding the courage it took to speak so openly. Others felt uncertain, questioning the impact of revealing such personal details. The reaction showed how powerful the interview had been, creating a wide range of thoughts and feelings across the world. Within the royal family, the effect was even more intense. Trust, which had once been firm, now appeared shaken. The interview had brought forward issues that had long remained behind closed doors. This change made it harder to find a clear path toward understanding. Conversations became more careful, and the distance between family members grew more noticeable. The possibility of reconciliation seemed to move further away, replaced by a quiet uncertainty that lingered in the background. Even with the strength of his words, there were moments during the interview that hinted at something deeper. His expressions, his pauses, and the tone of his voice suggested that not everything had been fully resolved. There was a sense that he was still processing his experiences, still trying to understand the full weight of what had happened. The act of speaking openly had brought relief, but it had also revealed emotions that were still unfolding. As time passed, the impact of the interview continued to shape the path ahead. It became a turning point that influenced how Harry was seen by the world and how his story would move forward. The honesty he showed created stronger connections with some, while also deepening the divide with others. It was a moment that carried both clarity and complication, leaving a lasting mark on everything that followed. Cracks beneath the surface. As time moved forward, a gentle change began to appear around Prince Harry. The strong and firm tone that once shaped public moments slowly softened into something more thoughtful. His appearances carried a calm presence, yet there were small signs that deeper feelings were still at work beneath the surface. The way he listened, the way he paused, and the way he expressed himself began to show a more reflective side. It was not loud or sudden, but it was clear enough for careful observers to notice that something within him was changing. Public events and shared moments started to reveal these quiet shifts. His body language spoke in ways that words did not always capture. There were times when he seemed present, yet distant, as if part of his thoughts were somewhere else. His expressions held a mix of calm and weight, suggesting that his journey was still unfolding inside him. Each appearance added another layer to the story, showing a man who was no longer only focused on moving forward, but also on looking inward. As these changes became more visible, his reflections grew deeper. Thoughts about identity and belonging began to take a stronger place in his life. He had stepped away from a role that had shaped him for many years, and now he was learning what it meant to stand outside of it. This process was not simple. It required him to face questions about who he was, where he belonged, and how his past connected to his present. These thoughts did not rush to answers, but instead stayed with him, guiding his understanding step by step. The release of his memoir became another important moment in this journey. It allowed him to share more of his story, adding new details to what the world had already seen. Through its pages, readers were given a closer look at his experiences, his struggles, and his growth. The memoir brought clarity in some areas, yet it also raised new questions. It showed how much he had lived through, but it also left people wondering if he had truly found peace with it all. As people read and reflected on his words, they began to notice a difference in tone. The strong sense of defiance that had once stood at the center of his voice seemed to soften into something more gentle. There was a feeling of thoughtfulness, as if he was no longer trying to prove a point, but instead trying to understand his own path. This shift gave his story a new depth, making it feel more personal and more real. Even with this growing sense of reflection, there were still signs that everything was not fully settled. His journey continued to hold moments of quiet tension, where past and present seemed to meet. The choices he had made were still shaping his life, and the effects of those choices could not be ignored. Each step forward carried both growth and memory, showing that healing is often a slow and careful process. The balance between peace and uncertainty became a central part of his story. He had created a life that matched his values, yet the questions within him remained. This did not take away from his strength, but instead added to it. It showed that even in a life of change and progress, there can still be moments of doubt and reflection. These moments gave his journey a sense of honesty that many could understand. As the story continued to unfold, the quiet shift within him became more meaningful. It showed a man who was learning, growing, and facing his truth with patience. The layers of his experience were still being revealed, one moment at a time. Each reflection brought him closer to understanding himself, even if the answers were not yet complete. With these changes becoming clearer, new questions began to rise. Was this softer tone a sign that he was finding peace, or was it the beginning of a deeper realization? The moment of realization. There came a quiet moment in the life of Prince Harry when everything seemed to slow down. It was not loud or filled with attention. It was calm, almost still, yet it carried a deep and powerful feeling. In that space, reflection became stronger than ever before. The path he had chosen, the distance he had created, and the life he had built all came together in his thoughts. What once felt like a clear direction now stood before him with new meaning. It was a moment that did not ask for an answer right away, but instead asked him to feel, to remember, and to truly understand. As this realization settled in, it reached far beyond the idea of place. It was not only about leaving one country for another, it was about stepping away from family, from shared history, and from a role that had shaped his identity for many years. The connection to his roots, to the life he once lived, began to feel stronger in its absence. Each memory carried warmth, yet also a sense of distance that could not be ignored. The meaning of his decision became clearer, showing that some choices are not only about change, but about what is left behind. The feeling of regret did not arrive all at once. It came gently, building over time through quiet thoughts and moments of reflection. Missed occasions, lost time, and the absence of familiar voices began to hold more weight. The bond he once shared with those closest to him, especially Prince William, felt more distant than ever. Their shared past was filled with moments that could not be replaced, and now those memories stood in contrast to the present. The space between them was no longer just physical. It carried emotion that could be felt deeply. As these thoughts grew, the understanding of his choices became more complete. Stepping away from royal life had once seemed like a way to gain freedom and protect what mattered most. While it had brought certain peace, it had also created a gap that could not easily be closed. The balance between independence and connection revealed its true form. It showed that every step forward had its own cost, and that some parts of life remained tied to where one began. The realization also brought a softer tone to his reflections. There was less focus on what had been left behind, and more attention on what it meant now. The journey he had taken was still his own, shaped by his needs and his values. Yet, this moment added depth to that journey, showing that growth often comes with new understanding. It was not about turning back time, but about seeing clearly what each choice had created. In this quiet space, there was also a sense of acceptance beginning to form. The past could not be changed, but it could be understood in a new way. Each experience, each decision, and each step had led him to this point. The weight of it all was real, but so was the strength it had taken to walk this path. This balance between regret and growth became a key part of his story, shaping how he would move forward. Even with this growing clarity, the future remained open. The realization did not bring all the answers, but it opened the door to deeper questions. It allowed him to look at his life with honesty, seeing both the light and the shadow within it. The journey ahead would be guided by this understanding, carrying lessons that would stay with him in every step he took. As the moment passed and the world continued to watch, new thoughts began to rise. Could this realization lead to healing where distance had taken hold? Would the bonds that once felt strong find a way to grow again? Can the divide be repaired? As time moved forward, the focus shifted once again around Prince Harry. The earlier words of reflection had already begun to spread, and now they created a new wave of attention. The world was no longer only looking at what had been said or done in the past. Instead, attention turned toward what could still happen next. The story was no longer only about separation. It had become about the possibility of repair, understanding, and whether time could soften what had grown distant. At the heart of this growing question were the strained ties within the royal family. The connection with King Charles III stood as one of the most important parts of this story. Their relationship, once shaped by duty and shared responsibility, had been tested by distance and time. Alongside this, the bond with Prince William carried even deeper emotional weight. They had grown up together, faced life side by side, and shared moments that shaped their early years. Now, that closeness felt distant, marked by silence and careful separation. Inside palace walls, conversations began to take on a quieter but more serious tone. The idea of reconciliation was not openly confirmed, but it was discussed in careful ways. There were thoughts about whether private talks could happen, whether meetings could be arranged, and what steps might be needed to rebuild trust. Every idea carried both hope and hesitation. Nothing was simple, and every possible move required patience. The history between them was long, and that history could not be ignored or rushed. The question of trust became central to everything. Trust, once strong, had been tested by time, distance, and public attention. Rebuilding it would not be easy. It would require more than words. It would need understanding, consistency, and a willingness to listen without pressure. Each side carried memories of past moments, both good and difficult, and those memories shaped how they viewed the present. The path forward depended on whether those memories could be seen in a new light. Outside the palace, the world continued to watch closely. Every small detail was noticed, every change in tone was discussed, and every sign of movement was followed with interest. People wondered if healing was truly possible after so much had happened. Some believed that time naturally softens pain and allows space for understanding. Others felt that some divides become too deep to fully close. This mix of opinion made the situation even more layered and uncertain. For Harry, this stage of the journey carried a different kind of weight. It was no longer about making bold decisions or stepping into new paths. It was about reflection, patience, and facing the results of earlier choices. The distance that once felt like freedom now held deeper meaning. It showed him what had been gained, but also what had been left behind. This balance between independence and connection became clearer with time, shaping how he viewed the possibility of reconciliation. Still, nothing was fixed. The situation remained open, shaped by emotion, memory, and time. There was no clear answer yet, only possibilities. The idea of healing existed, but it required careful steps and honest understanding from all sides. Every small moment mattered, because even the smallest change could influence what came next. The path forward was not straight, but it was still there, waiting to be shaped. As this chapter continued to unfold, the world held on to one central question. Could distance be replaced with understanding, or had too much changed to return to what once was? Would time become a bridge that brings people closer again, or would it remain a reminder of what has been lost? And as the story moved forward, what new chapter would begin in a journey that still had more to reveal? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.